Hi, it's John Glynn, and today we're going to be in Photoshop Elements 20, just using a standard PC and mouse, nothing special, and I'm going to be looking at the color replacement brush, okay, which is in your toolbox on the left hand side. And if you put your mouse over, I'm just clicking once with the left mouse key, it says color replacement tool, and if it's active you'll notice below your picture will be the brush options, and I'm using the color replacement tool brush here. You'll have the size of the brush on the right hand side. You can drag the slider left and right. To the right it makes the brush bigger, and drag it to the left, it'll make it smaller. And if you want to change it without moving the size all the time physically, just use your brackets on your keyboard. Left hand bracket makes it smaller, right hand bracket makes it bigger, and it's a bit easier. You can see it magically moving the cursor, the slider along while I'm doing it without actually touching the slider. So it's a bit easier than going down here all the time. I've just got it in color mode, and I have changed the colors on my color swatch to red, but it doesn't matter what color you change it to. It should be black and white as standard. So if I want to change the color from black to another color, I'll just click in this color swatch, choose another color. You can choose any color you've got just on a slider. I choose red because it's obvious. Click once with the left mouse key, say OK. I've now got a color red on top of my on top of the background color, which is still white. I'm going to hold down the left mouse key and you'll see that I get a red sky. If I hold down the left mouse key and keep moving around, you'll notice that behind the bridge the sky will go red. As long as I don't put the crosshairs over the bridge itself, then the sky behind the bridge will change colour, but the bridge itself won't. Okay, that's because the setting is here. It's got the word limits. It's discontiguous. Discontiguous means that anything that falls within the circle of the same tone will change colour. Okay, so that's the purpose of discontiguous. If I put my brush down here and just go into the edge of the bridge, you'll see that the sky behind the bridge changes to red, but the ground at the bottom doesn't change to red, the water doesn't change to red, but anything which is the tonal, the water is changing to red, to be honest, because it's the same as the tonal range of the sky, but the wall doesn't change to red on the right hand side, okay, because it's brown and the sky is blue or bluish. So it's looking for tonal ranges which fall within the colour that I've selected, and it will change those colours as long as it's within the circle. If your crosshairs goes over the top of a colour of anything, then it will change it to that colour. Okay, so you have to be careful where those crosshairs are. It's the crosshairs that will determine exactly what colours are seen and what changes colour. I'm going to undo all that, so I'm going to go to history. History is in a panel on the right hand side. If it's not open, you'll find it under window. Window at the top toolbar will give you history, and I can then just go to the word open, click the right mouse key, clear history, say OK, and I'm back to square one, and it saves me doing undo, undo, undo all the time. Okay, so if I click on contiguous rather than discontiguous at the bottom of my picture, and hold down the left mouse key of my sky, and I move my mouse over the bridge, you'll now notice that it's only the sky that I'm on that changes, and not anything behind the bridge. Okay, and that goes for the base as well. Now the reason that is because contiguous means it only impacts pixels that are next to the colour that I've chosen and works within the circle only, not outside the circle, if you like, or so therefore it doesn't pick up colours. Even though the circle has covered them, it doesn't pick them up because it's only what the crosshairs is seeing that is picked up. Okay, so it's not going to change any other colours. However, if my crosshairs goes over anything else, it will change it just as it did with discontiguous. Okay, so it's what the crosshair sees is important. So if you're doing edges and changing the colour of edges, you may find that contiguous is the best thing to do. But if you want things behind the edges, like leaves and in trees and stuff, to be changed, the twigs and space behind them to be changed, then you would be using discontiguous. Okay, so you've got contiguous and discontiguous depending on what you're trying to colour. So I'll just do that again. Discontiguous, I want to change not only the sky here but the sky behind the bridge. As long as the crosshairs doesn't go over the bridge, then the sky behind the bridge will also change colour to the new red. Okay, but if the crosshairs goes over the bridge, then the bridge itself will change colour. Hopefully that makes sense. So you may have to keep changing your brush size, or you may have to zoom in much closer to continue working and making sure that you cover the areas you want to cover. This is not a selection, it is physically changing the pixel colour, so it's quite a destructive process for your pictures, so it might have been a good idea to duplicate the background picture before you actually start doing this. So I suppose I ought to do that. I should really go up. Oops, I've just deleted everything. Delete that as well. Deleted the opening. I can go to background. I can make a duplicate layer and say OK, copy, and I could work on the copy, the background copy, and close the background completely. And therefore, if I do make mistakes, I don't have to start from scratch. I can just go back to background and start up again. So I've got a duplicate layer and work on that. Tolerance is how strong the effect will be and in what areas. At the moment I've got it's on 23%. I'll show you if I up the percentage. I'll see whether it will impact everything more equally. It changes everything. If I down that percentage, just see what effect it has, and you can see that straight away it has less effect on all the colours. So when you change the tolerance, it will impact how much of the picture area is being impacted by your colour change. Tolerance is effectively looking at this tonal range, and it's saying how much of the foreground or other parts of the picture are of the same tonal range as my original picture, or original colour, as long as I hold down the left mouse key. If I let go of the left mouse key and pick up somewhere else, it will then obviously change the impact of what I'm selecting. But you can see that it's not selecting the dark blue at the bottom unless I put my mouse over the top of it. In other words, my crosshairs. And then it will change it, but otherwise it doesn't change it. So tolerance is how much it will change of the original colour as I move around. Okay, a bit higher tolerance, the more colours will be picked up. Lower tolerance, the fewer colours will be picked up. Change that, clear history. Okay, so tolerance is important to understand as to tonal ranges in your picture, and tonal ranges equate to colour. At the moment I've got it on colour. There's hue, there's saturation, which will pick up colours that are there, hue and saturation, colour, which is what we've been using, and there's also a thing called luminosity, and that will deal with, I'll go down here, how dark things are. Okay, so that's to do with density. Luminosity is always density. Okay, of light, basically, how bright things are. If they're dark, it might well lighten it. It does the opposite, if you like. So it's lightening it in a light area, it darkens it. Okay, so that's luminosity. go back to duplicate layer, clear history, say OK. These are quite difficult concepts to understand. I'm just going to go back to color because that's what we're changing, the color. Contiguous and discontiguous we've looked at, and we also have a thing called sampling once. Sampling once means if I put my mouse over the blue sky here and hold my left mouse key down and keep on going round, you can see that it effectively just keeps on changing the color of that sky. It doesn't even affect the color below, even though my crosshairs are over the bottom part of that sky. It's not changing the color, unlike the previous option. It only changes the color that I'm on, and that is directly down to tolerance. So I could change the color behind the bridge quite easily. If I want to increase the tolerance, I would have to go down to here and up the tolerance. Now when I click on the picture, it may well pick on more colors or more tonal ranges. Okay, so tolerance could be quite useful in that case. I've now changed the picture behind the bridge, the color of the sky, but it may not change the actual bridge color because that is a different shade of it's not blue at all, actually it's red, so therefore it's not going to impact the sky at all. So that's quite a useful tool to have, and that be related to the tolerance level. The lower the tolerance, the fewer colors or shades of color will be picked up. Hold down, there we are in the top. I go down here, it's changing the water because there is a lot of blue in the water, but not all of it, because where it's red it's not changing. Okay, so it's quite an interesting tool, that, and I'll show you something else it can do. So I'm going to clear history again, and this time I'm going to change to a different color, and I'm going to make it green. Say OK, and this time I'm going to pick up the bridge. Hold down the left mouse key on the bridge, and I can just change the color of the bridge. And the reason it will only do the red of the bridge is because as long as I keep the left mouse key held down, the wall must have quite a lot of red in it. It's only picking up the color that I originally chose. Okay, now it might also change the water. It may not, it depends on the tolerance. So it depends how much red there is in the walls and so on as to how much it's picked up. But I've now got a green bridge. I'd have to rework on everything else, of course, or change my tolerance, and reduce the tolerance would have only then reduced the amount of red in the wall. So if I undo what I've just done, clear history, say OK, and this time reduce the tolerance, but again put it over the red, my crosshairs over the bridge, hold down the left mouse key, you can see it's changing the bridge, not the wall, and it doesn't actually change the wall this time because I've reduced the tolerance level. Okay, so now I've got my green bridge. It isn't changing all of it because the tolerance may be too low, so you may have to up the tolerance slightly. So it's a matter of playing with tolerance, size of brush, zooming in, zooming out, and just getting used to the once option. If you take your mouse off, then obviously you're changing the tonal range that it will pick up, so you have to be a bit careful with that word once. Then you've got your sampling background swatch. So let's just go back and undo what I've just done. Delete that. Delete clear history rather. Say OK. Let's just get rid of that. And this time it's the background swatch. And what I'm going to do here is go to the background color, click on that option, and I'm giving an eyedropper. So I'm going to click on the eyedropper, and that's the color I'm going to take out. I'm going to say OK. So now it should replace it with the green. So anything that's of that shade of blue will be replaced with green. Again, it's down to tolerance, and it covers, as long as my crosshairs doesn't go over anything, it's doing the background behind the bridge as well, but not the bridge. Okay, so the background swatch, you're using your little eyedropper tool to pick up a colour, and you're telling the computer to just replace that colour, that tonal range, and nothing else, as long as it's within the crosshairs. Choose somewhere else and you may find that it will change the colours elsewhere. Okay, can be quite an interesting effect. But it's just changing that tonal range. If you want to find that that's not high enough, you'd have to change your tolerance, up your tolerance, and it will start changing more shades of colour. Can be quite an effect. I quite like that. But it is actually changing the pixels in your picture. It's not a selection tool, so it is actually making physical changes to your photograph, and that could be it's destructive. Basically, it is physically changing your picture, which is why I've made a duplicate copy, so if all goes wrong you can undo it. Okay, and that is quite an interesting skyline of if there's been a nuclear explosion or something. Okay, so and undo it if you wish by just going back to your history palette, clicking the duplicate layer, click the right mouse key and clear history, say OK, and we're back to square one. Anti-aliasing just is to do with making sure it doesn't pixelate, so it keeps nice clean edges. Brush settings, hardness, again is to do with how hard your brush is. I'll just do a smaller brush slightly, show you. There's a hard edge brush, and I'll do a soft edge brush. Okay, so depending on your subject matter you might have to choose one or the other. Hard edged or soft edged. Spacing, if I up the spacing and move along, you can see now as I move my mouse along I get circles which are not linked together, while if I go back to brush settings and reduce the spacing they link into one line. Next would be roundness. That's down to this weird shape at the bottom here. If I drag to the left you can see it changing shape. It's no longer as round, or you can have a round brush. Okay, so it's just a matter of working your way through what they do. Size, these are for pressure pens, so if you've got if you're using a pen tool rather than your mouse, you've got pen pressure. You can also use the stylus to change the pressure, and the same with tolerance, you can use a stylus rather than on the wheel, stylus wheel, or pan pressure, but you're needing a pen tool to really get the most out of those rather than a standard mouse. And you're going to, yeah, so I think that's probably covered all the main areas of what we're doing here. Pixel size, yep, that's it. So just a matter of practicing it. It may be useful to you, changing the colour of your parts of your photo or whole chunks of your photo, but do remember I would advise to do a background copy and to take it quite slowly through what these tools actually do: discontinuous, contiguous, sampling once, background colours, and the sampling continuous, and you can then have a go at changing the colour of the fourth rail bridge. Okay, thanks for watching.